So, you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So, you want to be a dungeon master.
That's great. We're here to help. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Justin. This week, we're going over one of our homebrew settings, Sphinx City, a modern and magical metropolis. It's the home of our first actual play, and at the time of recording this, we're recording Season 2. Throughout this episode, we'll go over Sphinx City, but also all the things that go into creating your own world for the sake of a campaign. Not to mention, behind the scenes, we're beginning to prepare Sphinx City for Kickstarter so everyone can play in this setting that we've fallen in love with. So let's get into it. But first... I was going to be about first. What makes Sphinx City different? Why do we enjoy playing in this world? Taylor, as a player, I'd love for you to hit this question first.
For sure. So Sphinx City is different, mainly in my mind, because it is a modern D&D campaign. And by that, I mean it is set in a modern setting. We've got cell phones. We've got technology. I've got a freaking rocket skateboard. And it's, yeah. I mean, it doesn't get more modern and technical than that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun because I think a lot of the stuff, it leads to more kind of, I don't know, pop culture references, and also just kind of, it's in my mind a little more fun than playing in this standard D&D setting, just because of the fact that everything's kind of modern, and it's not like you're having to throw back your thinking like, oh, would they have like plumbing back then, or like indoor plumbing or whatever. Yeah, no, it's a modern setting, and there's a lot of fun goofs and stuff that would only exist in a modern setting.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of what I find. That's kind of what I find the most fun about it, is not really having to think too hard about what I would do, because it is basically what would I do.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, there are like some really specific aspects that are advanced technology, like a rocket skateboard, perhaps. But right. I think because magic also exists in the world, there's a lot you can get away with without going full sci-fi or something.
Right.
But I agree. I think the modern setting is just a breath of fresh air, if nothing else. Like, I'm with you on this stance that, like, I can have fun in a typical medieval high fantasy D&D, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones vibe. Like, that's still fun. It's just, if every D&D campaign is set in the Forgotten Realms, I don't want to play anymore. I want to do something else. And so I think that, for me, is one of the things that makes Sphinx City different, is that we found a way to combine a modern setting with the mechanics of D&D in such a way, because magic exists, where you don't have to like hack all of D&D as a system.
Right.
You know, because there are other games that do what we're doing. Shadowrun is a good example. There's definitely magic and modern stuff in that game, but it's a different game. Like, the mechanics are just very, very different. And then there are other ones, Cyberpunk, but that's even a little bit further into the future, where you're getting all kinds of like cyborg enhancements and stuff. So that's a different genre that this wasn't meant to be. This was meant to be essentially a version of Manhattan, but magic also exists.
Right.
So, and we'll get into the obvious Unsleeping City rumors in a moment. But another thing that I love about Sphinx City is that, yeah, because it's modern and because obviously it's more relevant in that way, not only pop culture references, but also like villain references and stuff like that. In this setting, capitalism is the bad guy, and that's represented by different corporations and CEOs and evil, rich, greedy people, including like pharmaceutical companies that are completely predatory, all different kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's relatable. That's relatable as hell. If you're doing it in a medieval fantasy setting, you could still do it, but it would be like the pharmaceutical company would be like, I guess, the healing potion manufacturer, and that if you added that
apothecary, you have to create a chain apothecary type system, and then
And because transportation is so
capitalism
different
into it.
Yeah, you'd have to figure out, do they use teleportation or are they like shipping things? Like, how does that work? I don't know. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of, I don't know, suspension of disbelief maybe, but like, I do like that aspect of it, that it can feel very cathartic, especially these days. I think Sphinx City is even more fun and interesting for me because it is truly, it's so interesting because it's like an escape, but also, I don't know, it makes you feel like you have more power in
It's
that
like a
way.
power fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes you feel not helpless or like, well, I voted for the person who said that they weren't going to burn it all down, so I did my part and now I'm trying to organize in my community, but I live around rednecks and what the hell am I supposed to do? And it's like, well, at least this you can, even just for a moment, make yourself feel like you're making a tiny difference, even in this silly fantasy world.
Right.
The other tiny difference that I'll say is Sphinx City is interesting to me because the entire campaign takes place in one city. And therefore, it's incredibly well, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it's like incredibly well developed and like nuanced. And there's like so many different neighborhoods and a bajillion places to visit all in one city. And because it's modern,
it's not like
you can just take a cab or a subway and bing, bong, boom around the city.
Right. It's not
So
like
that's
you're
interesting.
going, you get this quest from somebody and you're like, oh, well, we got to take care of this dragon that's, a week away. And you've got to, think about downtime and travel time and all of this. And no, it's all happening right there. It's all right there. Get on your Lyft, get in the Uber or whatever. It's something different
Tuba.
in Sphinx. Tuba. Yeah. Get on your tuba and, just go.
Yeah. Our version of Uber is tuba, because if you say Uber with a New York accent, it comes out Uba. So then you just add a T on it. And I was originally making a joke on tubers, which is like root vegetables, like sweet potatoes. And that joke never hits because a lot of people don't know what the fuck a tuber is. So then I just changed it to being like, oh, every time you're in the car with the rideshare program known as Tuba, they just play big band music. And that's it. And that's the whole joke. It's so stupid. That's the other thing I love about Sphinx City is how fucking dumb and amazing all of the silly puns and ridiculousness are. It's definitely has the vibe or the coloring. This is actually how it was described to me as somebody who played in one of my Sphinx City one-shots. A absolute sweetie by the name of Jack Panic of Dungeon Club, a game designer, an incredible person. Anyway, Jack referred to it as having Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes.
Yes.
Just in the sense of like, there's action, there's comedy. It's like kind of has a comic booky feel to it where it's not like insanely realistic, like it has that sort of vibe. And I was like, yes, that's a perfect way to describe
really
kind of what we're going for.
Capture what we're talking about. Yeah.
Hey gang, we wanted to talk to you about something pretty important real quick. See, we have some really cool ideas for the future, but we need your help. You can do that by supporting us through our Patreon. At the lowest tier, you get early access to podcast episodes, access to episodes of Action Surge, our post-session table talk show, and entry into a private channel on our Discord server. At the next tier, you can get access to Bonus Action, our bonus content podcast where we talk about a huge variety of D&D and TTRPG related things, like multi-class mystery mashup, where we get 2 random classes and have to build a character, or Monster Matchmaker, where we go over our favorite monsters at each CR level, or recaps of our home campaign, plus so much more. Joining the Patreon helps us continue to grow and put out content that gets better and better as we learn, improve, and try new things. So, check out the link in the description to join the gang today. Yeah, so let's actually get into Sphinx City, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll start with how Sphinx City got started.
How did we get started with this setting here?
Well, one day I was watching Dimension 20s on Sleeping City, and I thought,
what?
That's a really fucking cool idea. I didn't think that you could do D&D using modern settings and stuff like that, but it seems so simple. Everything that they're doing doesn't have that many mechanics in it. It's just, okay, they have cell phones. So yeah, I guess it's less likely for someone to pick the sending spell, but like, it's not the end of the world. Who cares? They can pick a different spell. Like, that opens up an opportunity for them to pick a different spell. That's dope. They had little things like the way that they flavored Zach Oyama's character's plate armor was he still gets the AC boost as if he is wearing plate armor, but it would be crazy for his firefighter character to actually be wearing metal plate. And so he gets the AC bonus, and he also gets the penalty, which is disadvantage on stealth checks. But it's explained not by the clink clank of armor, but because his character is just so hot that everyone is trying, everyone notices him.
Right.
And so all these little tiny flavor changes, and I was like, oh, it's so possible to twist many different TTRPG systems, but especially Dungeons and Dragons into fitting different kinds of settings and different kinds of time periods and tones and all kinds of stuff. So why not?
And that's one of the things that that really got me hooked on Dimension 20 as a, like one of the reasons why I got Dropout in the first place was for Dimension 20. And it was because, especially at the time of Unsleeping City, when Unsleeping came out, I think it was only Unsleeping City, Fantasy High, and Escape from Bloodkeep. And all three of them are so vastly different. And have their own twist on how things go. The only one that actually kind of is sort of regular what I would consider quote unquote regular D&D is Escape from Bloodkeep. Yeah. And even that, it's an evil campaign, which I, as a player, I've never really come across what an evil campaign would even look like, Yeah,
and they did it brilliantly.
And they did such a good job. And
So
it
fun.
just is one of those things that really kind of inspired me to get behind the screen my goddamn self and, start making fun stories.
And truly seeing the limits of what the system can do. Like, what types of stories can you tell with this system without changing it so much that you actually are better off just using a different system. Because that is true. That can happen. I mean, I've experienced that where I've tried to tell a couple stories and I use D&D, but then I'm like, yeah, but if magic exists, that's crazy, so it won't be magic. And it's like, oh, whoa. Actually, magic is so prevalent in D&D as a system. It's actually crazy to do that. You can, especially for shorter campaigns, but because we did What Lies in the Darkness, and we obviously stayed straight at least a little bit away from magic. There was elements of D&D's magic that we flavored as psionics and the experimentations and all the different things, which totally made sense. But had you thrown a wizard in there, having to flavor every single spell as some kind of mutation or technology, eventually it gets exhausting.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I did it the way that I did it, because, with What Lies in the Darkness, I gave everybody I made the character sheets, because I knew how the world was going to be flavored and how things were going to go, that, I didn't want it to be too difficult for the players to stay immersed and stay within the boundaries of D&D. Yeah,
definitely.
And that's one of the things that you really got to think about when you're doing a non-typical setting, and freaking Sphinx City is that. It's really it gets rid of the guardrails while still telling a non-traditional D&D story, because now you have this contemporary setting, and also there's magic,
right? Absolutely.
Rather than having to try to reflavor stuff like they do in Dimension 20, where they have to reflavor a bunch of stuff to make it seem like it fits, or reflavor the whole damn city to make it so that magic fits in this world. The whole world is still magic. It's basically like if you took that medieval, I almost said Final Fantasy, that medieval Dungeons and Dragons setting, and just let it progress to modern age.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I imagine that if you actually did that in a vacuum, it would age differently than if you just took Manhattan today and added in D&D
Right.
spells. But the point is definitely true. Like, that is the vibe that we're going for, because it's just as likely to see somebody walking down the street with a cell phone and a tiny dog on a leash that it is to see somebody like casting a spell and having a pet fairy dragon. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, that was the idea. Taking what Dimension 20 did, which was explore New York City in a super fun way, and then have this underlying secret layer, plane of existence, or whatever you want to think of it as, that has the magic. Whether that's, I mean, obviously fairy is involved. Then they have Nod, the actual sixth borough or whatever. And then they have hell and heaven and all the different planes and stuff. And I was like, oh, all of that is so cool. I want to do that. But there's a couple problems. Number one, I don't know New York City. As much as I love New York City, I'm obviously born and raised from New Jersey, so pretty close. I romanticize that city just like I do Baltimore and stuff. But I don't know it like Brennan did. I can't name all the parks or be like, yeah, if you get off of this, the green line on the fucking train, then, you know, you're going to go down to Canarsie. I don't fucking know, man. I don't know all the subway lines and stuff. So I was like, it's going to feel weird to do it that way. So I'll just invent my own city and kind of base it on New York City, but specifically Manhattan, just because it was like, I don't know if I need the city to be that big. I want to go, the city's already big. Just Manhattan alone is fucking huge, you know? I don't necessarily need all 5 boroughs. Although, expansion packs in the future, we'll save that for another day.
Expansion packs.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm
already thinking about
expansion
it.
Pack.
Hell yeah, dude. I can't wait. Get into the ferry, have a fight on the ferry. There's so many ideas, honestly. So that was the start of it. And then doing it differently involved combining modern and magic into one seamless world where you could see all the different species that D&D offers, tieflings, half-orcs, treants even, like whatever. They're all on the fucking peninsula that is Sphinx City. And we're going to stick with D&D because at the time, that was the only system that I knew, but I knew it really well. And I think because of Dimension 20, both Fantasy High and Unsleeping City, it really made me realize that it's like, yeah, because it's just sort of modern day, what is the most technological thing that's going to be break the system? Couldn't think of anything. Cell phones, investigation check. Looking things up on the internet, investigation check, or some relevant intelligence-based
history check.
Yeah,
exactly.
Medicine, whatever it is. And then
whatever you're trying to do,
like transportation. Okay, you just get places faster. It's the same as if the party buys horses or some shit. I honestly couldn't think of anything that was too crazy. So let's get into some modern mechanics and what we've done for them. Because obviously that's like such a huge question that people will have in the beginning, naturally, which is a fair question to ask. I remember, I've been running the So You Want to Be a DM Instagram for a long time before we even were So You Want to Be a DM. Before that, it was Dungeons and Daydreams. But I remember posing this question a couple times of like, hey, how much like homebrew would you do? Like, what homebrew rules would you include if you were doing D&D but a modern setting? And every single person was like, just use Cyberpunk, just use Shadowrun, just use Call of Cthulhu, just naming other systems. And it was like, I'm not saying those other systems are bad or can't do what I'm trying to do. I just want to see if D&D can do it.
Yeah, and in my mind, I don't want to go out and buy a whole nother set of rule books. I don't want to go learn in a whole nother system. The one that we've got, will work just fine. It will be It will work just fine if you make a couple of tweaks.
And those
the biggest
tweaks
one
are
the biggest one of those tweaks, obviously, is the introduction of the internet and cell phones. The sending spell kind of becomes irrelevant in a way. With doing this. So, obviously if you're planning on running this with, at home, the sending spell, basically you can just tell your friends or, the players, sending, maybe you want to get something else instead, because cell phones are a thing. The internet is a thing. You are able to look up information and stuff on the fly. You're able to call people and talk to them
and text
without having to, Yeah, and texting and all of that stuff. You're able to do all of that without any actual spell components or spell slots or anything like that. You can just do that because everybody's got a freaking mini computer in their pocket.
Yeah. And you know what else they have in their pocket that's part of that
What's
mini
that?
computer that as a DM, it is something that you kind of are like, oh, that's right. That phone that they have also has cameras.
Yeah.
That is something to get used to. There are like learning curves for all of this kind of stuff. Just like even for the players, they'll forget that like security cameras exist. That like certain aspects of technology exist. And so sometimes as a DM, when you're first introducing your player to modern D&D, yeah, you have to kind of like hold their hand a little bit and be like, let me have everyone make a perception check. Okay, someone rolled decent. Okay, you do notice some security like help them out a little bit until it becomes more second nature.
Right.
But yeah, cell phones and the internet are huge. Just the idea that they can just snap a picture of something instead of having to try and memorize things or write things down, or do you know what I mean? Like it's so much different.
Yeah.
Or they can videotape.
Live stream.
They can live stream. Yeah. We have a home game version of Sphinx City, and we had a character their character is a social media influencer kind of thing, like a content creator, and they accidentally kept their phone on and live streamed part of a battle where they killed some bad people, but like killed them, and then buried their bodies in the cemetery without calling the cops. So naturally, the cops eventually find out about it because again, it was live streamed. And the whole party's brought into the police precinct. It was like a whole thing. It was like they had to come in. They hired an attorney, in which I lovingly created an NPC called Ruth Bader Ginsburg's. I just added an S at the end of all of her names.
Right.
But she's incredible, and she's their attorney.
Metalocalypse of you.
Yeah, I love her so much.
Squizguard.
Mm-hmm. And so cell phones and internet are huge. Most of the time, honestly, we just keep it as simple as an investigation check. Again, you can use other intelligence checks, but it's like, okay, you rolled really high. You found credible sources. Right. Incredible. Oh, you rolled really poorly. Either you don't find anything. You just like, you don't know how to use a search engine, or you find bad information, untrustworthy information.
Right.
Yeah, or like you didn't put things in quotation marks to show that you meant these two words together. There's all kinds of weird things. But
search engines are hard, man.
They can be. And then there's transportation.
Another really big change.
Just the idea that the city's huge. Realistically, like in our modern normal world, getting from the financial district at the very southern tip of Manhattan and going all the way to like Central Park, if you were just walking that, you're fucked. That's it. That's a hell of a walk. Take a taxi. It's going to take much less time, but it's still going to take longer than you might think just because of traffic. So there's so many things to consider in that way. But it's a lot of fun. So then you get to ask your characters like, hey, do you guys normally take public transportation? Does your character have enough money to where they can get Ubers or Tubas or whatever the fuck, or taxi cabs, or maybe your character has a bike, a moped, a scooter, a rocket skateboard, or whatever, you know? Maybe they own a car. Maybe there's a reason that their character owns a car, and like that could be a fun thing.
Yeah.
So many ideas. It's just like a interesting thing that I've realized.
Oh my God.
I think it's a lot of fun. Not to mention Subway.
A whole adventuring party trying to pile into a smart car.
Oh, hell yeah.
The one party member has a car. It's a smart car, and there's 5 people in the party.
That'd be dope.
Look, we gotta get to the other side of Central Park now.
That would be so funny. And then there's some of it plays into the internet idea and stuff like that, but just another nod to like computers and technology and the idea of like hacking. Yeah. Because in normal D&D, locked door, thieves' tools, good to go. But a lot of times these days, you have mechanical doors. You have electrically locked doors. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, how are you fucking using lockpicks to hack into a little mini computer on the door? You know what I mean?
Right. So it's a key card, dude. How are you picking that open? Yeah. Yeah.
Swiper, yes, swiping. So that was an interesting little update. I think that was one that I didn't even consider when we very first started playing Sphinx City. And it was one of those where it was like, you know what? Luckily, we have some artificers in the group, or we have people who are proficient with tinker tools.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just flavor that. If you're good with tinker tools, you can use tinker tools to attempt hacking.
Right.
And then for things that maybe it makes less sense for the character to be able to like fully hack into a hard drive or do something crazy, get into the security cameras, like something that's like a little more high level hacking.
Right.
And all of this is hearsay. I don't really know what I'm talking about, so excuse me, but high level hacking, let's call it. You can always introduce NPCs, a resource that has that ability. The same way that if you have a party who doesn't have healing, you introduce that apothecary who has that weird chain of healing potions that have been marked up. Or a wizard friend who can cast Identify on all of their crazy magic items.
Yeah.
It works the same way.
Yeah, same situation. Exactly.
Now,
the other thing that you have to deal with in a more modern setting, unfortunately, is guns.
Unfortunately, it is guns. You gotta, you can't swing a cat without hitting a gun owner. Especially is that an expression?
Swinging a cat? Yeah, absolutely.
And hitting a gun owner?
Hitting something. Yeah, that's totally an expression.
Oh,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It means they're a dime a dozen. They're all over the goddamn place. You've never heard the term swinging a cat?
I don't think
so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look it up. Get in the comments.
Funny. Get in the comments. Oh no.
Get in the comments. Yeah. I think the phrase is swing a dead cat. I don't know what it really is in reference to. I just know that I think it's probably a Southern saying, so there would make sense that you haven't heard it. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I'm seeing here on Reddit that there's an episode of Frasier where they use the phrase, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Marco.
Right.
Which I guess is like somebody's name. But yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah,
there you go.
Guns all over the place. Guns are all over the place. Yeah,
they are. Unfortunately, firearms are real, and you do have to figure out a way to input them into your game. I think there's a couple options you could go with. I mean, honestly, what we did is just reflavor longbows, short bows, hand crossbows, heavy crossbows, light crossbows. We just reflavored those.
Easy peasy done. But also,
that's the easiest. But you can also use different rules. The Dungeon Master's Guide often, and even the players, I think specifically it's the Player's Handbook, actually. The Player's Handbook, I believe, will offer, or Dungeon Master's Guide, check them both, why not? I think they'll offer different rules for advanced technology when it comes to weapons.
Right.
It'll show you like different examples, the range, the damage types and stuff, and then you just kind of balance it with other stuff. So, like, if you're finding stats for a musket and you're like, I'll just reflavor this as a rifle, it's fine, whatever. But it does, I'm using random numbers, so this is not what the book says. But if it says that it does 2d10, that's significantly more than every other weapon that other characters will have.
Right.
Right? Like, a great sword does 2d6 and a great axe does 1d12. So 2d10, a maximum of 20. That's way more unbalanced. The reason a lot of those firearm statistics that you see have such high damage types is because they also incorporate reloading and misfire mechanics. So it balances out a little bit. But I can tell you in the home Sphinx City game, that's not part of the actual play, just like the home game version. I did that with a character. I gave them a ton of weapons and firearms and stuff like that, and they're pretty powerful, but they have misfires and stuff. And she picked the lucky feat.
Oh.
Anytime she misfires,
so it can't
no, she didn't.
Now. Right.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So that whole mechanic is done. So now she just has the most powerful weapons in the game. And I'm like, oh boy. Well, here we go. Back to the drawing board.
Right.
You live and you learn. You figure it out. And then the rest is flavor. For the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, you will find things out along the way as we continue to play in this setting and like fall in love with it even more. But like the rest is flavor. Can my leather armor be a leather jacket? Yes. Can my great axe be a stop sign I pulled out of the? Yes. Can my like most of the time it's yes. Like as long if it's cool. Can I use a crossbow, but it's made of rubber bands and pencils that I stole from the chemistry lab? Hell yes. Sure. That sounds hilarious.
Go for it. Right.
Do you know what I mean? Can my steel defender be a rocket skateboard that turns into a dog? Yeah. Why not? Do you know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I don't give a shit. Why not?
Gives me, yeah. I mean, as long as you don't change the mechanics behind it. Like, I have a rocket skateboard, but like,
it's not like you have extra speed during fights.
Right. Exactly. It's not an extra speed thing. Technically shouldn't be allowed to ride it, but but
it's always in RP scenes.
It's always
ride it. So who cares?
Exactly.
You could just catch the subway. Mm-hmm. And that would be exactly the same as riding your skateboard in a way. So it's kind of like, whatever. Who cares?
Right.
And that a lot of that has to do with the way that we run transportation in our actual plays, and at least in the home game as well, is I don't charge for them. I don't keep track of that. Their characters are quote unquote paying for them. Like every time your characters get a tuba or go on the subway or get a taxi, yes, they are paying for them, but I just don't. It's one of those things. Like once you get to high enough level D&D, it's like, oh, you guys are getting an ale. I'm not fucking doing coppers and silvers. Are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah.
If it's not 50 gold, I don't care.
Right. You have 4,000 gold. I want silver, please. Silver piece, please.
Yeah, right. It's like
break one of those up for you.
It just doesn't matter. So
yeah.
So in the creation process, the way that it started behind the scenes and stuff, and one of the ways, because there's a billion ways to create worlds and campaigns and stuff like that, it started with a map of Manhattan. I knew that I wanted to sort of loosely base it off of that. I love the idea that Manhattan and New York City in general has a ton of boroughs and neighborhoods, and they're named different things. And it's like, if you're not from there, you're not familiar with that, like Alphabet City or Stuyvesant or Chelsea or Soho, like all these like really specific things. And it's like,
these are all words that I've heard before. I still couldn't tell you what a borough is. Like I know that like New York is a bunch of boroughs, but what is a borough? Yeah. And it's like, and it's a weird borough too. It's not like burrow, like a rabbit. It's with a UGH at the end. Borough.
Yeah. 2 R's.
Get what the hell?
I don't know. It's almost like neighborhood. I don't know. I don't know the etymology.
It's a New York thing. They're weird. They're all weird up there.
Yeah, we're weird. We're weird. We're in a rush. Get out of the road.
Freaking Northerners. Your weird words and
you mid-Atlantics. You stay down there.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. We. Yeah. The 5 boroughs of New York City: Queens, the Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, and Brooklyn are the 5. And I just stuck to Manhattan.
Are further broken down.
And then they're further broken down just in Manhattan alone. Like the most common 2 that almost everyone's heard of, even if you're not from New York or from the Northeast, is Little Italy and Chinatown. Those are neighborhoods inside of Manhattan. Granted, a million different cities have Chinatowns. That's like a fairly common phrase for that neighborhood. But or like Little Italy, there's like I think in Minnesota they have like a Little Norway, like that's also very common. But those would be 2 examples of neighborhoods. So I took the map. I'm looking at this map that has all these neighborhoods written on it, and I just started renaming them. And I was not being super intense about it. I was kind of being funny and silly, and I wanted to give a nod to New York City. So Midtown West, which is just the name of a borough that's near Times Square, I just renamed that Minotaur West. Done. Greenwich Village, Gnomewich Village. Times Square, Sphinx Square. Central Park, Midling Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not. Some of them were like Chelsea is the name of a district in Manhattan, and I just took Chelsea and I switched them, and now it's Seashell, and it's now the Seashell district.
Right.
And so, we're just doing wordplay and just having fun, little dumb puns and things. And then I just started, I think I opened a Google Doc and I started with a notebook first. And I just started writing down as many ideas as I could think of for locations and places to visit. Started with the obvious stuff and then moved on to anything and everything that could even possibly exist in a city. All the while adding NPCs along the way. Like, here's the person who runs the bodega. Here's the person who runs the really kitschy restaurant chain that's in Times Square or Sphinx Square that only tourists go to. Here's who runs this Italian restaurant that's secretly owned by the mob. Here's who, you know what I mean? So just by creating all of the locations, or as many locations as I could think of, then starting to build out NPCs, flavor ideas, like how do I incorporate magic into all of these different aspects and stuff, and it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of really just goes back to a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the world building episodes and the other, setting details and stuff like that we've gone over and been talking about for the last year at this point of, everything builds on itself. It always winds up doing that. If you're trying to do a big campaign like this, it always winds up being you start small and then get bigger.
Yeah, 100%. Because you
start with the super obvious stuff. Yeah,
exactly. You create a couple of places. And then later down the line, maybe you want to create some gangs, some thieves guilds, some assassins guilds, some drug dealers, whatever it may be. And then you're like, oh, remember that one, like, I don't know, business that I made in this district, blah, blah, blah. What if that's a front for this thing? And then, you know what I mean? Because, you start making connections and your corkboard starts filling up with red thread. As you're starting to truly make connections between different aspects and stuff, and what makes this neighborhood different from this neighborhood, and and just like providing a million different things. Some of that just involved me straight up using like Google Maps and looking at Manhattan and being like, all right, what's this? If I'm changing Chelsea to the Seashell District, what is Chelsea known for? What restaurants are in Chelsea? What, just as inspiration, just as like a building off point, Yeah. And then just going from there, and then just adding in magic ideas. Like, one of the businesses that exists in Sphinx City is called Psychic Cycle. And so, Taylor, have you ever heard of Soul Cycle?
No. It's
like one of those really fancy bougie fitness boutiques, kind of like Orange Theory or something like that. Like those kind of workout places where it's like one specific type of group fitness and that's all they do.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's not like a gym where you can just go and do your own thing. It's like, no. You come in, there's like a teacher for each class. You take the classes and you go home. And that's the whole thing.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And Soul Cycle is obviously cycling classes. So I added a magic flair to it, called it Psychic Cycle instead of Soul Cycle. And now it's 50% cycle class, 50% seance. You summon the dead and talk to them while you're doing a cycling class. I don't know why. I think it's funny. And that's kind of it. And I know who runs that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of just went from there. I know that there's going to be restaurants. I know that there's going to be diners. There's going to be fine dining. And then there's going to be really simple dining. There's going to be $1 pizza slices and $50 pizzas. Like everything is going to range in so many different ways. Here. I wish. So now that we have loosely, at least, the setting in terms of just locations and stuff, the way that I start often is the next thing I go into is the bad guys.
Right.
And like we said at the top, the main bad guy, and I knew this from the jump, it's capitalism. But how do we represent that? Because it can't. I didn't want it to be like a conceptual, like the way Brennan did it. Spoilers for Unsleeping City season 1. I didn't want it to be like
4 years. Go watch it.
I know. I'm just in case people haven't for some reason. Heads up, here it comes. In season 1, they are fighting a bunch of different moving parts, and then it also ends up being like they're fighting literally the American dream.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily want to do that. I didn't want to do it so like high concept.
Right. Because
I want them to fight like actual people.
Wind up fighting like a deity of like a deific representation of the American dream. It was like an Uncle Sam with an eagle head or something. And
yeah, he had big angel
crazy
wings.
stuff.
It was kind of
big
weird.
angel. Yeah.
But I mean, it was beautiful. It was incredible. But it wasn't exactly what I was trying to do. So it was just like, okay, how do I represent capitalism? And I mean, it comes down to, obviously, you got to follow the money.
Right.
So you start thinking about all the different ways that money corrupts and things of that nature. So you start thinking of corporations, you know? And I settled on realtors, the idea of aggressive realtor companies that buy out these places and gentrify neighborhoods and raise up prices and stuff, landlords in general, you know? I thought about pharmaceutical companies, just the way that the American healthcare system was easy to replicate into a fantasy world with evil characters. Very easy to be like, oh, insulin? Yeah, it went up 2,000% over the last 10 years, but it's the fucking same formula, dude. Nothing's changed. It's not better.
Nothing's changed.
We just make more money.
More money.
Exactly. And then I added an Amazon-like company, but I called it Excelsior. Fun fact, New York is considered the Excelsior state, and that's where that comes from. And I like the word. It's
a fun word. It is.
It is a fun word. It was the name.
I can't hear that word without thinking of Stan Lee, though. R.I.P.
Excelsior. Yeah, of course.
Excelsior.
Yeah. R.I.P. But that's where Excelsior came from, representing Amazon and stuff like that. Then you have, like, you know, some classic D&D bad guys, gangs, thieves guild, shit like that. There's also positions of power that have been corrupted because of greed, money, the pursuit of power in general. And that can include the police. It can include the mayor. If I wanted to, like, there's other avenues that we haven't taken in our development of Sphinx City, but you could. Like, for example, I don't necessarily have the general hospital of Sphinx City come up a ton as being part of the evil entities or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you could. You absolutely could. Hospitals often these days are run like businesses, and therefore, if you're not giving them profit, you're dead to them. And so that's a sad truth. I could include an insurance company. I could include, you know what I mean? The sky's the limit. A technology company. I don't know, an electric car company maybe. I don't fucking know.
Corruption's everywhere, people. Just put it in your game.
Open your eyes, man.
Open your eyes, man. It's all over the goddamn place.
I was there, man. I seen it, man. I was there. I opened for Bono at the concert, man. I seen it, man. I was there. Oh my God, that's my favorite Shane Top character. Try not to laugh. I was there, man. So funny. So then, okay, we have all these moving parts of villainy. But what about the BBEG? Now, again, we know it's capitalism as a concept, but like, if there is one central figure, an actual NPC, essentially, who is it going to be? And so what I did is I just took 3 billionaires that exist in our real world, and I mushed their names together, and you get Zusk Burgos. Feel free to take a stab at that. The guy's name, again, Zusk Burgos. And that's the evil guy. And he's just rich as fuck. And he's very charismatic. And he's the head of the entire mastermind of the plan and all this different stuff. But how do we make these villains different, exciting, and evil? Well, there's a couple things that make them incredibly different from some of your average D&D monsters, or BBGs even and stuff. I think one of the things is, despite it being very obvious that all of the villains are connected through money, most likely, and stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to find evidence that like ties them together. So just when you find one, like, yeah, you find their cell phone and you find out that they've been texting this other CEO and stuff like that. But it's like, that's not enough. It's not like you're going to get the entire public to switch sides.
It's going to hold up in court. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's been a fun challenge of really making it difficult to find those ties, to find the hard evidence, as if you could just, you know, uncover the entire conspiracy early on. The other thing is that almost all of the villains along the way, the CEO of a realtor company, the head of research and development of a pharmaceutical company, the head PR person of Excelsior or whatever, including Zusk Burgos himself, they're all incredibly public facing, charismatic, and even admired by the public.
Yeah.
That is an interesting thing. I mean, fucking A, dude. Look at where we are at today.
Oh God, I don't wanna.
Let's move on.
I don't wanna.
But you get it. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
important.
yeah.
That's what I mean. Just the idea that they're
yeah.
in the public. It's not like they're
Yeah.
sneaky in their lair
No,
and they're
no,
planning
this
to
is-
summon an undead god. It's like, no. They're on
He
TV every
owns
fucking
Twitter.
day.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like that. What an interesting thing to have to go against that, you know? It's just a different dynamic than some D&D games.
Right.
The other thing, it's not like they need to get into power
No,
or
they're-
take over the world, or like not take over the world, but like take over Sphinx City necessarily. They're kind of already in very
already there,
powerful
yeah.
and influential positions.
And that I feel could be, that is kind of a D&D trope of corruption and all that stuff, getting rid of the evil vizier or whatever. And but it's it's still very much in the modern sense, like these are like CEOs of corporations, like they've got employees, they've got people that like are just regular dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not everybody who works for Amazon is evil. Like that, to even think that would
Honestly,
be an incredible broad brush stroke.
Yeah.
That'd be an
Honestly,
insane
that would be
generalization.
really, Amazon workers, you guys, I don't know how you put up with it, but you keep doing you because you're keeping the world running.
Yeah, unfortunately, we depend on you.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
as much,
we need you.
the entire country is on your backs, and
boy.
we're gonna need you to stay there. Sorry.
Speaking of evil plans, so now that we have all of our villains sort of figured out, just from a concept standpoint, like I just knew that I wanted a pharmaceutical company to be an evil person. I knew that I wanted a realtor company to have some evil people, and so on and so forth. So now that we have those pieces, what is their plan? Like, what are they trying to fucking do? Now, the interesting thing, why would people who have all this money and power and influence have an elaborate plan to do more evil? Why would they? What else are they trying to gain? Do you know what I mean? What don't they have?
Right.
And so, a lot of this is going to be spoilers. So, if you have not watched season 1 of Sphinx City, the actual play, or listened to it on the podcast, I strongly urge you to go do that. It's been out for a little bit. It's the first actual play we ever put out, so the quality, it leaves something to be desired, but it's good. It just, compared to how we are today, it, doesn't necessarily stack up the same, but it is still good content, and it is interesting and funny, and it's an incredible season, and it was so much fun to make. But spoilers ahead. So the secret is that all of the villains in Sphinx City, even Zusk Burgos, are actually working for someone else. Zusk Burgos isn't the real BBEG. He's a false BBEG.
What?
And an important note about that is that I've added a small detail to Sphinx City in that aberrations as a classification of creature, the same way that there are undead and giants and humanoids and monstrosities and all that shit. Aberrations, mind flayers, intellect devourers, so on and so forth, they don't exist. And the words don't and exist are in quotes because they do exist. But as far as anyone in Sphinx City is concerned, it's a wild conspiracy that should never be trusted. Of course, aliens don't exist. That's nuts. So let's play into that.
Right.
So the setting is unique because it all takes place in this one massive city. But what if instead of just creating another city, another state, country, whatever, there was eventually an entire galaxy to play around with? But that's for another episode.
All right.
So since the villains are working for this alien, what does this alien want? Simple answer, they want to take over. For some reason, they've decided to start, just like Loki and his weird Kree or whatever the fucking worm titans that he summoned through that wormhole in the first Avengers movie. For some reason, they start with New York City. And in our case, Sphinx City. Maybe that has to do with it being such a pivotal place of commerce, such a densely populated city. There's a million potential reasons.
Right.
I could go way more into depth, and maybe we will for the source book material and like the actual final product for like Kickstarter and stuff. We can go into like how Sphinx City was created. I do have an idea because, you know, before it was New York City, it was called New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I want to pay homage to that. And so I had, at the time of coming up with this idea, I had recently watched Brennan Lee Mulligan and Izzy Rowland's Bigger on Dropout.
Yeah.
Do you remember the all hamster?
No. I've honestly, yeah. So how? Because I actually haven't gotten around to watching it myself.
Oh, dog, you're gonna love it. Well,
I know what you're talking about. I just haven't seen it.
Okay. So instead of New Amsterdam, it's just called New Hamsterdam, and that's the whole joke.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah. Love that.
It's a
solid
whole thing.
Joke. 10 out of 10.
Hell yeah. It's it's gonna be good. In the home game of Sphinx City, we do have an all hamster. It's a long story. But
okay.
So they're trying to come in and take over, and how are a bunch of rich people and corrupt officials going to help that? Well, there's a couple ways that they can help. And this is where you come up with like multiple plans, like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, or all these different like contingencies for the bad guys to do, depending on how long you want your campaign to go for. You know what I mean? Like there's a speed run of Sphinx City and we could crush through it. And that's kind of like what the actual play is a little bit of a speed run. But I can tell you, in our home campaign version of Sphinx City, it's been like 2 years and they're not even near where the actual play is.
Hilarious.
So you can space things out. Like, for example, the realtor company has 3 co-CEOs, like co-founders. Now, if you wanted to space things out, you could have the party fight each CEO individually.
Yeah.
Or if you want to speed things up for brevity's sake, for whatever the reason, you can have them fight all 3 at once. And so it's nice because it's like modular in that sense. A little bit of railroad mixed with a little bit of sandbox. That sort of vibe.
Yeah.
But 2 of the ways that these evil corporations and CEOs can help with an alien invasion is to prepare for that invasion, either by building some sort of device that can create a wormhole that can get them here quickly, a mass teleportation device or something. You can also raise an army. Maybe you want to turn...
Yeah.
Maybe you want to turn...
the masses. And
you can brainwash them. Make them all lizard folk. Make them all into crocodile folks that they can't really think for themselves and they have little reptile brains. Not only can you raise the price of shitcoin, but you also got an entire fucking crocodile army, bro.
Oh, God.
Because that was the original plan for season 1. And then the shitcoin idea was so funny that I kind of made it seem like shitcoin was the only reason that they were creating lizard folk people. And I was like, no. That's just a perk, kind of. That's just like the, you know, the cherry on top. They're actually doing it for like a legitimately scary reason. The shitcoin thing is just like while we're at it, we might as well make a quick buck. But there's all different kinds of ideas. I have, even just in season 2, there's like, I have 2 different contingency plans. It's here's the main plan. I know that they're going to thwart that immediately in the first 3 to 4 episodes. And then here's the backup plan that will actually go until the finale. You know, like I had to sort of, it's an actual play. You do it a little differently. It's more railroady than a home game for sure. That being said, what's next? That describes a lot of the setting itself, both the locations, the vibes that we're going for, the modern mechanics, the bad guys, the plan that the players have to thwart and stuff like that. So what's next? And that is when you start involving your players. So let's start with character creation.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of this is just, letting your players have fun with the flavor and shit. I can tell you as somebody who's... I've come up with... Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I've come up with, I think, 2 or 3, I think 3 characters for Sphinx City, and each one of them has been vastly different. I've got the one that I play on the actual play, Jaster, who is, you know, he's like a tech guy who does like locksmithing and a little bit of, there's like an underground fighting ring that I'm a part of. Kind of, I guess I'm a trainer now too, like a boxing trainer type of person. But then another playthrough I did with, just doing one shots where we were kind of just using the one shots to meet a bunch of people. The other one that I really, really liked was, it's like Martin Short or something like that, or
it was some
Short,
play on the names.
Polly Martin. That's it, Polly Martin. And he was a, like a true crime podcaster.
Yeah.
And a eloquence bard. So like, and same kind of, situation. And it's a totally vastly different character, still able to have a whole lot of fun in the setting.
Yeah. And it's like the connections that those characters would have in the city, NPCs that they would be familiar with, areas of the city that they'd be familiar with. Like, it's all over the place between just those two characters, let alone the third. So it's like, I've seen people, because we've played that one shot with so many different groups and stuff, I've seen so many interesting characters. I've seen people, didn't you almost play a necromancer EMT or something like that?
The thought did come up because the necromancer, a necromancer is a paramedic that's just a couple minutes too late.
Yeah. So another incredible idea. Because we had another one that was an EMT, but they were a barbarian, and it was just like their rage was instead of like anger rage, it was like the need for speed.
Yeah.
Of like riding that ambulance to full throttle to get to the emergency and stuff. And then, we've had firefighters, we've had the old champ, like boxing champ, like the way Rocky is to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We had that sort of setup. We've had, former police officers who turned into detectives when they found out that the cops were corrupt. We've had social media influencers. We've had completely rich Nepo babies. We've had circus performers. You name it. We've had everything under the sun. Yeah. It's insane.
So much fun.
It really is, because
the diversity that you're able to pull off in this setting is absolutely delightful.
It's really, really fun taking these classic D&D ideas that so many people are familiar with and slapping on this flavor that feels so new.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fun to think about, like, what would a paladin in this world look like? What would a sorcerer look like? Like, how would I flavor this, And so that's a ton of fun, whether it's just reflavoring backgrounds, reflavoring appearances of things, weapons and stuff. And then I think an important part of character creation for this type of setting is just creating characters that love Sphinx City and would risk a lot to save it. Yeah. Connecting them to the setting, to NPCs, locations. I think that's always important. I kind of think that's important for any kind of campaign or setting. It's just like keeping them even a little bit on track.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close to railroading. It's not like, hey, I need you to go to this town and do the thing. It's just like, I need your character to give a shit.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
Why would your character care if bad things are happening?
The plot a little bit, right?
And so that's like the important thing. Obviously, in a classic D&D setting, that almost is part of it, because it's like, well, you're playing heroes, you're adventurers. Here, it's like in Sphinx City, you're not necessarily like an adventurer, right? Like everybody, every single person we've played with, their character has like a daytime job. Like they have their own shit.
I remember we were playing a one shot, and we knew it was a one shot. I think it was the Polly Martin one, and we would finished up the campaign, or not the campaign, but finished up the session, and like everybody's like personal goals had all been achieved, and I was like, oh man, this mystery seems like it could go to the top, and everybody's like, yeah, I don't care, I'm out of here. Just because we knew it was like it was a one shot, so we weren't going to be regrouping up again. And that's kind of a valid thing for one shots in this area. It's just like, I got what I wanted out of it. I got my little thumb drive. I'm good.
Yeah, right.
I'm going back to work, man.
I know, and it does make sense for the true crime podcaster to like continue the investigation when when you find out that it's like, oh, it doesn't end here. There's more clues that point elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And so that first mission, which is what the one shot is is the first mission is intentionally railroady just to bring everybody together in a very easy way for the DM.
Right.
Now, naturally, if you were getting this source book, this setting module, whatever you want to call it, take it or leave it. You don't have to run that the same way. I don't care. But I would recommend it for especially newer DMs. It's a lot easier to just get people introduced because the first mission, there's a bunch of missing, kidnapped people, and we got to figure out where they are.
Right.
And then other ways to bring the characters together is to have them all be part of a organization, something that ties them all together. That's an easy way. One of the examples that we use in the actual play is there is a international secret organization called No One, but spelled with a K. And it's like the Men in Black. Because again, remember as before, spoilers, aliens exist. And guess who knows about them? No one.
No one knows.
Exactly. So all different ways to connect your characters together. I do think that's really important in Sphinx City, even more so than some D&D campaigns. Like Forgotten Realms, the Faerun is so fucking big. It's so easy to not have your characters have prior connections, you know? But in Sphinx City, the entire setting is going to take place here. When one character says, oh yeah, my favorite place to eat is, the gastronome in Gnomewich Village, there's a solid chance other characters are going to be like, me too, because they would have heard of that. Right. So I think building connections in various ways, whether it's like, oh yeah, we go to the same gym, or hey, we live in the same apartment building, or something, And then from here on out, it's really just us, Taylor and I, continuing to work together to further develop a lot of these things, NPCs, villains, locations, maps, and all different kinds of logistical things for the sake of eventually going to Kickstarter. And it also includes homebrewed content for the setting, because we don't just want to give you all of these things and then be like, yeah, here's the setting. We're also planning on homebrewing subclasses, magic items, maybe even species. I don't know about that last one. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know about that one, but I do. If you're interested in some of these other homebrew things that we're working on, check out the Patreon.
Absolutely,
because a lot of that stuff is going to be coming up either as an episode form, or also we do have some stuff that is actually like printable, readable, like actually already typed up, ready to go, usable. So
yeah, absolutely,
definitely check all that stuff out if you're interested. Obviously we're talking about this because season 2 is about to come out pretty soon, so be ready for that on YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah, we're gonna be. They're pre-recorded, but we will be like posting them live on Twitch first. We'll be in the chat the whole time and stuff. Try and get the cast involved in that if they're available, and then it'll go to YouTube and podcast form after that.
Yeah,
like after they premiere on Twitch and stuff. So it's gonna be really, really exciting. And I mean, there's so much cool stuff on the Patreon. There's like a ton of homebrew content that's on there that's not necessarily Sphinx City related, but just that we've created, whether it's species or subclasses and stuff. And there will continue to be so. Going to try and continue to put stuff on there. Most of it needs playtesting, so we need your help. So it's really important that you guys get on that and help us out in that regard. And then depending on which gang member you want to become for the Patreon, we also have bonus action episodes, incredible extra podcast stuff where Taylor and I truly let loose and talk about anything and everything D&D or tabletop related.
Or even not even tabletop related, I think, right?
Well, we'll probably go on tangents that aren't tabletop related, but I think the episodes themselves are like structured at least enough about tabletop.
I don't know. They're all a blur to me at this point.
They are
We've been doing
crazy.
this for a while. It's all blurred together.
They're loose. They're loose and fast. And we did just recently record a bonus action episode where we created the entire, I mean, maybe we'll add some here and there, of course, but like we created the entire first draft of the Pantheon of Sphinx City.
Yeah.
And I'm like really proud of it.
It's dope. Yeah. It's really
I
dope.
told my mom
really
about it later.
Too. Yeah.
I was like, no, Mom, listen, you don't understand. The knowledge god's name is Biblioteca. It's hilarious. And then
That's the Arcana God.
oh, you're right. It's Arcana that's Bibliotheca. Knowledge is fact and fiction.
Fact and fiction.
Twin
I
deities.
was really proud of that. Yeah.
There's some really, really
They're
cool
really
ones. Deluge, the forecaster for the Tempest. Some really,
Mario,
really cool
the
ones.
Pizza Maestro.
Oh, hell yeah. You'll never guess what domain he is. Anyway, as always, this episode is brought to you by Fresca, America's number one grapefruit
Come
flavored
on
beverage.
now. That's,
Thank you so
okay,
much.
yeah, no. That's all we
for
can get
paying
into
me
this time.
Hundreds of dollars.
You can find us on TikTok and Instagram
year.
at So You Want to Be a DM, or you can ask us a question at soyouwannabeadm@gmail.com. If you like the episode, don't forget to give us 5 stars and a review wherever you found us. And yeah, check out that Patreon and the Twitch pages with the link in the description. Join us next time for more Dungeon Master tips and tricks.
Bye.
See ya.
And now I have the honor of giving a shout out to the members of our Patreon gang. Nub Muffins, may Palor's light shine upon them. And then there's Tappy and Molly. We appreciate each and every one of you. Tune in next time for more tips and tricks from So You Wanna Be a DM.